Hi everyone, I'm Raoul and I'm here today talking to two amazing parents. We've got Jade and Roy here and we're going to be talking about a lot of the guidance and ideas that are found on the NSPCC's Parenting Hub, and the topic today is going to be on tantrums. So, Jade and Roy, it's such a wide topic and there's lots of different ideas around temper tantrums with our little ones. Just wondered first if we could start with a general kind of opening about what your ideas on temper tantrums are and if you've had any experiences with your little ones.
So I'm a parent to a 2-year-old, so just about to start the terrible twos, or just in the terrible twos. It feels like everyone always says the terrible twos and you should be sort of worried about it coming, and it suddenly sort of hits you that your child goes from being sort of this happy-go-lucky to suddenly, just randomly out of the blue, it seems like just losing their mind and suddenly so upset, and you don't really know how to handle it. I feel like I'm just about getting into it, and it feels to me just like sort of a loss of control from everyone's point of view. And then it seems like it's happened, and then within the next instant, it's already over.
It's really interesting you say that with the terrible twos. I've got a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. And with the 5-year-old, I was bracing myself for terrible twos. And he completely bypassed it. He was a great 2-year-old. But then he became a threenager as soon as he turned 3. And that was tough. I think one thing that I found particularly difficult is being able to sort of disassociate myself from the things that he would bring to me in terms of the problem. So I would try and talk to him in a logical way that I might talk to an adult, or that would be my thought pattern. So, for example, if he did something wrong that was really, like, say he hit or something like that, I'd be really hung up on getting him to say sorry, thinking that a 3-year-old is going to be able to conceptualize that and not have, he just doesn't have that part of his brain developed at that age to be able to understand empathy at a great level. So it was completely wasted energy for me. And it really shows with the 2-year-old, my approach is completely different. He's not started terrible twos yet, but he is testing boundaries now with the 2-year-old.
Such good points, and I like when we're thinking about boundaries and children, how they test them as time goes by, but also thinking about a toddler tantrum as a form of communication, and just thinking about how do we try to get to their level to understand some of the difficulties or some of the feelings that they have, like feeling overwhelmed or trying to manage something or not quite understanding what's going on. And how does that manifest itself? And how are we able to try to get to their level to understand it, as opposed to wanting them to be where we are and articulating it as we might want them to?
It's interesting. So I was thinking about the this morning. We had a tantrum, and it's saying about testing boundaries. That is it at the moment. That's what we're going through. I was getting a lot of no and not wanting to put jacket on, not wanting to get ready for nursery, and I think sometimes, for me, you're kind of in a rush and you kind of need to get going, but actually it's kind of taking that time to think about what's going on for her. Maybe today she doesn't want to go to nursery. Yesterday she did want to go to nursery and was excited, but today she wasn't really feeling up to doing that. And it's actually quite funny. I ended up singing Row, Row, Row Your Boat in a really bad tune this morning, and that was the way that we managed to calm the tantrum down and be able to get our coat and jacket on and get out the door.
I think one thing that I'd noticed a lot of people doing, which I tried to incorporate into what I do with my 5-year-old at the time, was getting to his level and also understanding. So getting to his level physically, kneeling down when I talk to him, gently holding his elbow to get his attention, and just knowing that, trying to empathize with him and understand what it is that's bugging him. One of the books that I've read gave a concept of a cup and how full is the cup in relation to the amount of instructions or the amount that you can ask from your child at a given time. And sometimes you know that their cup is full. If you know that they're tired, for example, then getting them to do something that requires a lot of their cognitive skills might become frustrating for them. There's always a place that would have come from. It doesn't just happen, although we tend to think it just happens, because it probably is going to happen at the worst, most embarrassing time possible for you as a parent. But that's the thing you have to kind of disassociate yourself from, and the idea of it being embarrassed by it or it happen in public. It's going to happen. It's fine. You'll get past it.
Thinking about public's temper tantrums, I remember being in the supermarket one day and I saw a child. The child wanted to go down a particular aisle, and the parent kind of had their idea about which aisle to go down first. And so the child just screamed, was really frustrated, wanted to go their way, and just laid on the floor, starfish, kind of waving arms around, flailing. And it was really remarkable because I saw the parent lay down alongside the child and do the exact same thing as the child. For me, thinking about temper tantrums, I guess as a parent, but also thinking about my work in mental health, and how modelling is so important, and actually being with the child, and like you said quite rightly, Roy, getting to their level, not just emotionally, but physically sometimes. And so this parent was on the ground flailing and making really odd sounds until the child looked around a bit, looked at their parent behaving really oddly, and just said, come on, Daddy, let's get up and leave. And it was quite remarkable for me to see that, and for other parents to see, actually, wow, it doesn't have to be filled with angst and frustration, and it can actually just be managed by, we can just do this together, and it doesn't have to last long, and then we just move on with our day.
Yeah, you definitely need to be ready to be self-deprecating in those situations and not get too hung up on you, the adult, because you're the parent at that point. And it's really difficult because in the moment you have to kind of catch yourself and think, okay, this is happening. I'm not going to worry about it. But with everybody's eyes on you, it's different. I do think that I've become a lot less judgmental being a parent, being in those situations, of what I would see when I didn't have kids and I'd see parents having to deal with that. I'd sympathize with them, but then in my head I'd be like, oh, I would never let my kid do this, or I'd never let my kid without having kids. Very easy to say, but once you're in that situation, it's a whole different ballgame. So I really empathize with parents when those times happen.
I think as a parent, when you see things happening or kicking off, there's always that moment where you catch their glance, and it's that kind of reassuring smile of like, you've got this. And that's kind of, anytime I see anyone or any children kicking off or anything happening or a scene happening in public, I always try and give them sort of a, you've got this, you can do it, because people have done that to me when my little one's been having a moment.
I guess it's about being calm, slowing things down, showing affection, and just remembering that the frustration element takes us away from the goal of trying to manage this difficult situation, this frustrating situation. I guess it's not as if a child is going to purposefully make things difficult for us and spoil our day. Well, I wanted to think with you guys as well about how communities or society talks about temper tantrums. And I know you said, Roy, there's books that you've read, and I'm sure, Jade, there's bits that you've read as well. And I'm thinking about how we talk about temper tantrums in our friendship groups, maybe in nurseries or schools, the media, social media, books, culture, and our families. And I just wondered if you guys are having conversations about temper tantrums and what they look like.
Certainly at nursery, I really look at what the nursery teachers are doing, because as difficult as I may find it on a personal level when either my 2-year-old or my 5-year-old has a temper tantrum, nursery workers have 30 odd kids in a class, and there's going to be a wide variety of situations where that could occur. So they have to deal with it on a daily basis. Societally, I think it's different. I think about what my parents would say when they see a child having a temper tantrum. When my mum sees me getting down to my child's level, she would never do that. I think there's an expectation, certainly from people of her age, that children should just do what they're told in many respects. In a practical sense, that doesn't really work for kids. It's also unrealistic to expect them to simply do what you say.
I have to agree, and I definitely think that my mum's parenting views are slightly different to mine in the way that I would parent my child. And I actually think along sort of my peers and my friends, we do discuss sort of tantrums, quite openly, and we support each other as parents when one of our children is going through a bit of a difficult time, both in public and when we're just at home together and spending time together. And I think that it's a lot more open, I find, in my friendship group and peer group. But if I was trying to have that same conversation with my mum or an older generation, they would perceive it much differently. I learned the other day about kind hands is what they use in nursery when I went to pick my little one up, and they were saying she wasn't using a lot of kind hands today, but that's something we're working on. So that's now something that I've taken to taken home. So when I see her being a bit sort of rough and tumble, I'll say, are we thinking about using our kind hands today? So that consistency across nursery and also in your at home as well, I think is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like that concept of kind hands, because there's we also do one with the 5-year-old now where we talk about there being anger inside of him, and that anger needs to come out of him. So a physical manifestation of a feeling. And there are ways to get it out, and then there are other ways that we shouldn't use to get it out, like hitting and whatnot. As a parent, it's really important we're not too hard on ourselves, because it's a learning experience for both ourselves and the child in terms of how we deal with temper tantrums. I think about what it was like when my 5-year-old was 3, and I look back on some of the things that I would have done, and I kind of beat myself up about it. I think, I definitely wouldn't handle it like that.
That element of compassion is so important, and just acknowledging that, like you say, Roy, and then Jay, that we are trying to learn on the job, and with all the advice and support and guidance around us, some extremely important. Us trying to work out how we want to parent and what works best for us is so important. Every child is different, so there's going to be some nuances that will present themselves. It's about being prepared to start again, and try to work out what that particular child needs and where I am in my life. I mean, my first child, I was younger, of course, and I've had a second one since, and I'm not the same person I was when I was dealing with the first 2-year-old compared to this one. And so a lot of things changed. Some days might feel as though we nailed it, and other days not so much. But the core principles of showing affection and using a calm voice and trying to explain your actions and trying to understand them is going to be fundamental no matter what day it is.
I think that's just have to remember that can't beat ourselves up about mourning if I have rushed or whatever. Just got to remember that we're doing a good job and we're learning on the job as we're going.
A toddler tantrum is a form of communication. So like we said before, they might be hungry, tired, unable to cope with a new situation or change of activity, and of course it's a way of them expressing overwhelm. Now, I wonder about us as parents when we're feeling overwhelmed by a situation. I wonder, like we said, about the compassion for ourselves. It could be overwhelming for everyone. I could think about times when I've had to take train journeys to see family out of the city, and sensory overload is happening for me as it is for the child as well. So it's recognising that we don't have to have all of our stuff together and be prepared for everything. We can be overwhelmed as well as they can, because we're humans too. Tantrums are normal. True or false?
True.
Of course, yes.
Yeah.
They are true, although they can be embarrassing, which is a key word for us that we've used today, which is absolutely great. They can be upsetting. They're very normal, and they're part of a child figuring out how to manage emotions and to navigate the world around them. Can I ask, as a little bit of a segue at this point, about emotional intelligence? I know it's a big buzzword and topic that's been used, and you've both said at different points about trying to help children to understand emotions. And the NSPCC talks about big feelings and how we're trying to get children to understand how to express different things. So I'm wondering how you're both doing on that journey. Maybe Roy. Let's hear from Roy.
One thing that I've found really helpful with both my 5-year-old and the 2-year-old is being able to identify emotions in other people. So, for example, when we're watching something on TV, I might pause it and say, oh, how do you think they're feeling? Do you think they feel happy or sad? Or do you think they might feel a bit angry? And then talk about that and just identify what the things are, what makes you say, why do you think they're angry, and so on. What should they do?
I think that's really true. I think, with my 2-year-old, she'll say, I'm crying, or baby's crying. She's got a baby doll, and she's starting and being able to identify her emotions. And so we're kind of just building on that in the home. So if she is upset, we're saying, are you feeling upset? Are you feeling angry? And trying to identify those emotions that she's feeling at the time. And we do it with the happy emotions as well, dancing or singing. We're like, we say, oh, you're singing, you're dancing, and you're laughing. And I think being able to kind of identify those emotions and help them understand what they're feeling is helpful too.
I like the dancing around and being silly. So, I mean, part of the things I talk with parents about is how do we enjoy moments as well? Because these temper tantrums are definitely a part of our parenting experience. Hopefully not for too long, but they do happen, and we're being honest about that. But there are other parts as well, like the happy, the dancing, the singing parts as well. So even for me, sometimes when I've experienced the few temper tantrums I've had with my kids.
Yeah, that's something I really struggle with. It reminds me of something you said earlier, Jade, about how as a parent, we're not always going to be, at number 10 every day. Some days you wake up and you're a 3 and things are tough. So just being able to get that nod of reassurance from somebody, I imagine, particularly in the moment, would be really, really comforting.
I wondered if you had any other thoughts about anything that we've discussed today, anything that stands out to you about our chat.
I think what really stands out, Rose, what you were saying about it just being a set period of time. It's such a tantrum, even though when you're in it, it feels like it's going on forever, and especially in public, they can feel longer. But they are just such a short snippet of your child's day, and I think I'm going to take that away to remember that when I'm in it, it's like it's obviously big to us, and it's hard when it's happening, but it is such a small part of your child's day.
And one thing that was mentioned earlier was around checking and thinking to yourself, okay, it could be a temper tantrum doesn't just happen. It might be their expression of something. What are they expressing? Are they frustrated? Have they just taken on too much? What is bugging them? And the key is to kind of understand what that is.
It's been so lovely talking to you both, Roy and Jade. Thank you so much for sharing all of the top tips and ideas and reflections about temper tantrums. Hopefully the listeners out there will have picked up a few bits and bobs that can be helpful for them too. So parents or carers, if you're having temper tantrums, do share this episode. And if you're not experiencing them yet, hopefully these are things that can be helpful for you when you're looking out for them in the future. And of course, if you're looking for further support or guidance, more information can be found on the NSPCC website, which is nspcc.org.uk/parenting.